Hi folks, here we are again with another episode of this travel log, shall we call it. I had a quick look the other day and I counted up about 44 hats that I own of different descriptions and styles and all that sort of thing. Maybe I should wear a different hat for every one of these episodes. We'll see anyway. So tells you there might be 44 episodes of this yet. So anyway, in the last one I said about my time at Goodyear. We finished the 86 season, and basically Goodyear then pulled out of F1. So we were all out of work, but I'd got the F1 bug. I'd got the travelling bug for one thing, and I wanted to stay in F1. So I thought that the best way of doing it, I mean, not being a mechanic or anything like that, or too technical. Yeah, I could play the drums, I could do duck and dive and earn a living and things like that. But to get a role in motorsport, I thought the best way of doing that would to be a truckie. And to this end, the best way of doing that was to get my HGV license. So I went off and got the HGV. I remember doing my training and my test. I mean, it's a lot harder now with everything, but did my training and my test sort of in a big old Bedford TK with a 6-speed crash box on it and everything. It was a right old knacker of a thing, but I got through my test. Failed it the first time on reversing, but I got through the second time okay. And then what happened was Goodyear came back. They announced they were coming back into F1. So the first thing I did was get hold of Goodyear and the team management there and say, look, I've got my HGV now. I'm available. But I think one or two of the boys there, I think Goodyear had a look at it, and there was a little bit of a natural culling here of one or two of the lads who used to play a bit too hard, and I was probably guilty of that. I was probably one of them. So consequently, I think when they went back into F1, Goodyear had a look at it and thought, let's get a whole new crew in here, somebody that we can mould a little bit better to the company image, because as I say, one or two of us, we enjoyed a good time, let's put it that way. So the Goodyear thing was out of the question. So I thought, well, okay, let's see what I can do. I've got an HGV now. I did the usual thing. I signed up with one or two agencies and went out doing all sorts of jobs, driving small trucks, big trucks, Arctics, delivering building materials, delivering to supermarkets and doing all of this. But the main thing that you had to do then was the Bible for getting any motorsport job was Autosport. You would rush down to the newsagents every Thursday morning, and you could go and have a look in the back of Autosport, and basically every single job in racing was in the back there. That was unless you knew somebody, which again was how I got in with Goodyear. I was very lucky with that. But this one particular time, I'd been following the season and seeing what was happening, but I saw this advert for a company called Middlebridge Racing, and they were looking for a truckie and team members to come into this new team that was almost like the remnants of the Ram outfit, which had last run, I think, in 85. And Ram was Ralph and McDonald, so that was Mick Ralph and John McDonald. And they'd had a hell of a lot of experience in racing. Always struggling, to be fair, always at the back end of the grid. But they were the typical guys back in those days that kept racing going, certainly from the independence aspect. So anyway, Johnny McDonald managed to do a deal to get a Benetton B186 car. Now, this particular car it's got a BMW engine in it, and it might not have been this particular chassis, but it was a Benetton car that had won in Mexico with Gerhard Berger in '86. I'm just going to show you something which I should have said before, really, but I've got lots of photos of my time in F1. But this one I'll just show you quickly was from Mexico in '86, and it's probably, I would say, the most treasured one I've got. This is actually a copy of it, but this is me and Ayrton Senna in Mexico, and that's quite that one's worth keeping. It took that in Mexico, took it down to the chemist in Adelaide. When we got to Adelaide, I got the film developed, got the picture printed out, took it down to Ayrton, and as you see, he signed it for me. So that was a nice one. Anyway, we move on, and as I say, we went to I applied for this job at Middlebridge, and I thought, well, yeah, I'm not going to get in with a big team. I've just not got the experience. So I drove down to Bicester, and I met Mick Ralph. And I also remember waiting in the reception as I got there, and you'll all know this guy, was Perry McCarthy. Now, I think Perry, if he has a look at this, he might correct me in that, but I think he was trying to get a drive with, because Middlebridge ran a Formula Ford 2000 team as well. And I think Perry was maybe trying to get a drive with them, or he might have been trying to get a drive with the F1 team. I can't quite remember now. But anyway, if you're there, Perry, it was the Stig on Top Gear. You can put me right on that one. So I had this meeting with Mick Ralph, and essentially got the job. So I was back in F1, and I thought, oh, this is terrific. Met John McDonald, and anybody who knows John knows he's bluff talking Cockney, lovely guy. Him and his brother Phil, fabulous fellas. Phil was a truckie and general guy on the Ram team, and all of them, they were they were a bunch of chaps, they were. But so I get offered the job with Middlebridge, and a couple of weeks later, or whenever it was, I drove down there, and essentially, we started work. We hadn't got a car, the chassis hadn't arrived at that particular time. But the lads were all starting to appear. It was going to be a small team. But we had some lads in there. I mean, maybe I won't remember them all, but certainly a pal who's remained a pal for all these years is Martin Angeloni. Martin has worked in motorsport from the very bottom level right up to the top level, and he's a cracking guy, lovely fella, and a very, very experienced mechanic. Andy Duggan, another good guy I think he's still in racing now. Steve Saunders, Torch, he was another guy that was involved with the Ram team. Who else we got? Dave Luckett was the chief mechanic. Now Dave probably got very, very famous for something that was, should never have happened in a way, but he'll always admit it was one of those. I think it was at Zolder in Belgium for the Belgian Grand Prix, and the cars were all lined up on the grid and ready for the off. And might have been whoever the driver. I'm pretty sure it was Patrese. Patrese stalled on the grid, and the race was just to go off. So Dave Luckett jumped over the pit wall with the starter for the engine just as the race started, and one of the cars, I think, behind might have stalled, and this driver called Siggy Storr piled into the back of the Arrows and into Dave Luckett. Well, Dave was lucky Luckett because he ended up with broken legs out of that one, but he was lucky that it wasn't far worse. So that incident is easily look, if you ever want to see that was that's available on YouTube. But Dave was very, very, again, an experienced guy, lovely guy, and he was the chief bolt on this operation. So that's the intro to what we were doing there, and I'll give you a little bit more insight in the next chapter.